Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about relative strength and how to use it in your stock selection criteria. So, first up, how I use relative strength is I take the 11 sectors of the S&P and then I just chart them against the S&P itself. So, what we're looking at here first is utilities divided by SPY is on the bottom plane, and then up on the top plane you have Southern Company, one of the largest utilities. So now that we're looking at this, you can see that from November 21 to September of 22, the utilities really outperformed the market. And this is pretty evident when you look at the chart of Southern as well. It starts in the lower left and it ends in the lower right. If you know anything about what was going on in the market this time, this is when we had that big pullback back at the end of 21 into the majority of 22. And during those times, you'll have your low volatility stocks usually outperform, which is what utilities are. So we can see here utilities were outperforming the S&P. This is clearly evident because when you look at the relative strength, it goes from the lower left to the upper right in an uptrend. And then, like I said, here's the S&P during that time. It topped out in November, bottomed in September, and since Southern was going up while the SPY was going down, utilities were outperforming. Next up, we have Meta. So Meta is within the communication sector, the XLC. So in the lower plane, we have the XLC divided by SPY. That bottomed out in October of 22, the same time that Meta bottomed out. And it's been in an uptrend ever since. So from the lower left to the upper right, Meta's been going higher. And then the XLC against the SPY has also been going higher. Next up, we have Prologis. It's the largest holding within the XLRE, which is the real estate sector. And this one's been a career lagger, and it's been extremely lagging since April of 22. So you can see that the relative strength ratio peaked in April of 22, the same time that Prologis also peaked. And even though Prologis has been sideways pretty much since June of 22, the last year, the relative strength of the XLRE compared to the SPY has been going straight down. So if you'd been investing in these stocks or trading these stocks, you would be massively underperforming the market, and that's what you don't want to do. You want to use relative strength to figure out where the areas of strength are within the market, and then you look to position yourself when the assets within that sector are breaking out. Then finally, we have NVIDIA here. This is the technology sector, XLK divided by SPY. This bottomed in January of 23, and it's been ripping ever since. So these charts are more or less the same. You can see that NVIDIA was the leader off the lows. They both truly bottomed out in October of 22, and then that's XLK divided by SPY made a little double bottom in January, but NVIDIA was already moving higher in January. So you also want to use relative strength for confirmation of a breakout. If NVIDIA is breaking out on its own and then you look at the relative chart and it's not quite breaking out, there may be a good chance that you're in a lagging sector. So you just want to look for that relative strength ratio to also be breaking out the same time the price is. And when you're using relative strength, you can use it the same way that you would if you're looking at a regular, any other asset type. So NVIDIA, peaked back in August of 21, but the XLK divided by SPY ratio peaked in May of 30, or May 30th of 23. So when you look at this, you can see that even though NVIDIA was still going higher, it was not going higher at the same rate that it was before, and it was underperforming the market. So now, if NVIDIA is going to go higher, this ratio, the XLK divided by SPY, is also going to go higher. And that's what we're going to look at. Once this ratio breaks out, NVIDIA should be breaking out. And usually NVIDIA will lead the ratio or be about the same since it is one of the larger components of the XLK. And that's what we're looking at right now. So that's just a quick down and dirty on how to use relative strength and what to look for in stocks. The easiest way to get into relative strength is to just type in the 11 sectors of the S&P. I also have Bitcoin and gold in here, and then just start going through and looking at them. So what I do to sort my sectors is I just use the RSI, the weekly RSI, and I rank them based on that. RSI is a momentum oscillator. So what it does is it looks at the last 14 periods of price and develops them into a momentum oscillator in order to create a system that lets you know when an asset is oversold or overbought. When we're looking at assets, we want to be buying the ones that are overbought and making them go even higher. So that's kind of how I'm looking, with the XLK being the strongest sector, or the XLC being the strongest sector right now. It makes sense that it has the highest RSI. And what you want to do from this is, since this has the highest RSI, we're going to be looking at the stocks within that sector. We're going to be looking at Meta. And now, if Meta would break above, this 326 level, that's when you would get long. Google's also a component of that. If Google could really break out above, this 140 level, that would be, a good indicator to go long. It also lets you know really what's leading within the market and also, what kind of market environment we're in. So if utilities are leading, the sector the stock market as a whole is probably not doing very well, since those like kind of defensive assets are the ones that are taking the market higher, or at least leading the market. That's how you know that there's some pressure. What you really want to see is kind of what we've been seeing this year is with communications, which has a lot of kind of techier companies in it, with tech itself, with consumer discretionaries. That was a big leader for a lot of the year. You want to see those sectors really driving the market higher, and that's a way to kind of see what type of market environment we're in. So that's just a little brief video on relative strength. I hope this kind of helped you, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. Thanks.